Have you ever wondered why admins should test their solutions? Ever wonder how it should be done and if it can be automated? Today, Richard Clark will show you why and how automated testing for admins is critical. Welcome to 100 Days of Trailhead, where the tech community comes to learn Salesforce, learn tech, get inspired, and invest in ourselves. We are your trail guides, here to support you on your learning journey. We release videos weekly. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. In the description below, you can find links for everything we mention in this video, as well as books and resources we found useful. Visit our blog, 100daysoftrailhead.com, for other helpful Salesforce and tech content. Testing or QA is an essential role in development. Many admins don't know how to test their solutions. Richard Clark will share best practices and ways to automate your testing for your solutions as an administrator or someone in a functional role. Richard has been involved in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2007 in various partner and end customer roles. As Chief Innovation Officer at ProVar, he's responsible for product strategy, vision, and Salesforce community engagement. A key part of this involves educating the Ohana on DevOps best practices and using technology to deliver highly automated solutions.
Hi everyone, welcome to my 100 Days of Trailhead for test automation for admins. I'm Richard Clark and I work for ProVar Testing, the Salesforce test automation solution. I'm also an admin of our own org and I've been working on Salesforce since late 2007. Now, my first tip is test early and test often, and that's based on a well-quoted statistic gathered by research from IBM, where they found evidence that the cost of fixing a bug after it hits your production environment can be up to 100 times that of fixing it at the design stage. Wow. Now, those benefits are still tangible to a lesser extent all the way through your change lifecycle, as realistically, you don't find most bugs until implementation. Now, simply put, the earlier you are able to find bugs, the lower your effort to fix them. This doesn't even factor in the cost of bugs in production affecting your users. What's the cost to your business of every contact center agent unable to save a case, or an opportunity that can't be closed won at year end? So before we move on to the next tip, I want to point out a problem many teams have that we call the regression gap. When you've implemented Salesforce initially, you often have a great engagement from your users and an army of people checking the investment has been a success. But challenges can come in later releases. You want a small change, say to a validation rule on the account object. Maybe it's 1 hour to make the change and deploy it, but it's days to test you haven't broken what you've already implemented, or you don't bother testing. Now, this isn't just about any new code or config, but also about regression testing whenever there's a Salesforce release or one of your App Exchange packages is updated. And that regression demand and backlog compounds over time. So we have a release 1, we've tested everything maybe manually. Release 2, we've only added a bit more functionality, but actually we need to test the whole lot. Release 3, it's everything release 1, release 2, release 3, and so on. Now you may be saying, but I doubt it, that's okay. We've finished our implementation. There is no release 2. Well, as I said, what about those 3 releases per year from Salesforce? How are you going to check those are not breaking anything? Now, if you're like me, you might have got caught out by changes to guest users in Winter 21. You might have missed some. Apex security in Spring 21. And are you ready for the changes coming in Summer 21 too? So how are you going to test before this hits production? We're going to talk about some of the ways you can do that, but the first bit of good news, if you want to know about when the next Salesforce release is and when the sandbox preview is due to start, then you can find this out by visiting status.salesforce.com. Simply enter your instance, for example, NA99 or your My Domain, ProVar in my case, and you can see when that instance is due to have scheduled maintenance, including any major releases. Do be careful with sandboxes, as when you refresh a sandbox, it can, and normally does, change instance based on the current point in the release cycle and its capacity. A bit of detective work usually lets you find out the potential window which will affect you, and you will always get notified by email, but that's not much use if you're already on a vacation. Pre-releases occur between 3 and 5 weeks before sandbox preview. Pre-releases don't affect your org. You can sign up and get early access to see what's coming. But you cannot check a GS0 instance to find out using the status website. So I've put my best guesses up here. and my predictions for Spring 22, which wasn't announced at the time. So my second tip is we have a problem with regression testing. You don't have to buy a product or write code to solve it though. You can throw manual resources at the problem too, and many teams do this today. However, you need to consider if there is a better use of those people and their skills. Now, be aware that solving this manually will slow down your internal releases, the timeline. Your testers will often be seen as blocking changes reaching production, especially while they're busy doing all the regression testing, like that validation rule. Ultimately, this isn't scalable. The bigger and more complex your org gets, the harder the task to do the regression test. It is also probably one of my least favorite jobs personally, to follow a script, clicking buttons, entering data, and most QA teams would agree, which is why most prefer to put in place a test automation solution. Let's first ensure we all understand what we mean by test automation. And here's a nice simple summary. The key word here is repeatable. We need a well-defined script for automation written by a human where the automation just executes what we asked it to do. This is the minimum we should expect from test automation, but we can actually do much more. Now, some of the benefits of doing that test automation are clear. By having a repeatable, consistent set of tests, we reduce risk for those areas we cover with the automation. And all of that regression testing I illustrated earlier can be automated, and we can run those regularly rather than wait for someone to be free to do it. Most of your test team or yourself can then focus on the changes you're making to your org rather than testing what was done before that it wasn't broken. Now, for my third tip, I want to talk about people. And Salesforce MVP Cheryl Feldman hits the spot here with her tweet back in 2018. The best reason we should automate regression is it saves QA a boring task, but testing is also an art. The best testers are creative people. They have out-of-the-box thinking and do both positive and negative test cases. Now, automation isn't about getting rid of testers. It's about replacing a task they don't like for ones that their skills are unique for and they're very good at. As an anecdote, my colleague Hetty and I presented this slide at Dreamforce 18, and I think Gaurav, who commented on this, was in the front row of our audience and put his hand up. So it's a very small world we live in. If you haven't seen this video online, it's very relatable. Now, apologies, you don't have any sound. My AV setup isn't ready for recording that, and we probably don't have the licenses to distribute it either. But I'm sure I'm not alone in handing something over to a tester. Feeling confident about my skill and ingenuity. I've got 100% Apex code unique test coverage, and then I'm torn to pieces with dozens of bugs reported by our test team. Here we can see the guy, a tester in our example, putting different shape blocks in a children's shape. And instead of putting everything in the matching holes, he puts each one through the square hole because he can. Now, Alison, a developer or admin in our case, her response is hilarious. I must point out these are actors before you think I'm being cruel, okay? Feel free to watch that at your leisure, square hole meme. Okay, my fourth tip is closing that gap with exploratory testing. So one of the more valuable things that our tester can be doing is called exploratory testing. And this is a time-boxed testing mission with a specific objective, some limited documentation. And what we want to do is describe part of the system to be tested, a certain area, and then let the testers employ their creativity to explore and find results within that time box. Now, it's best done collaboratively and reserve time to discuss any results, but only raise what seems important. It's a very valuable type of testing, the kind of thing we should be doing more of where time allows. And importantly, this cannot be automated. The results of exploratory testing aren't binary. It's not a pass or a fail, but it may force you to rethink your design or your solution, or to accept the issues found and tackle them through either user training or some additional validation to your application. My last tip is about choosing a test automation solution. It's always worth first writing down what you're looking for, what you're looking to accomplish, and the value or priority you have in see it having that delivered. You also want to consider whether the solution is aligned to the Salesforce roadmap, or if it's a generic solution that makes you do all the heavy lifting each time there's a new Salesforce release. Now, my colleague Hetty did an article on this for Salesforce Ben a few years back, and I do still recommend that reviewing. It's still very relevant today. Finally, when you have a short list of solutions, think about getting demos, proof of concepts or trials from someone or a vendor about how it can meet your requirements you prioritized at the start. I mention solution very carefully there because your solution could be you have someone who can write the code. But I wanted to highlight what test automation code looks like to simply log into Salesforce. Now, this requires special skills to write and maintain. It will break if Salesforce change their login page HTML, the markup, and it's code to test something that you probably haven't even customized in your org. Maybe you added some styling or branding. Maybe you switched on single sign-in, but that's a lot of code. If you want to consider a test automation tool, then as an admin, consider one that lets you test as easy as you use Salesforce. This can really help anyone doing manual testing quickly build that regression pack and use it to test changes that you're making to your org without any of the issues or from using a code solution. Also, don't forget, you want to be thinking of having your results in a format you can understand and measure to know if your changes are making things better or worse. Salesforce has a great suite of analytics tools now, so consider using them in your solution and integrating them. To finish, I recommend you think about how much time you're spending doing regression testing today and how quickly the scope of that workload is increasing. If you think you have a testing problem, then consider if manual testing still works for you. And if not, review whether you want to invest in developers to write tests or use a test project that can test both the user interface and any APIs. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful, and feel free to reach out to me on social media or on the Trailblazer community to learn more. Bye-bye.
And with that, we're at the end. Do you plan on implementing QA testing for your administrators and other functional resources? Have you implemented QA for functional solutions previously? What was your experience? Comment below. We would also love to hear what topics you want us to cover in future videos in the comments. If you've made it to this point, we want to take an opportunity to say thank you. Since you stayed with us, here's a bonus. We've all been bitten by problems after deploying a change or after a Salesforce release update, but it doesn't have to be this way, and you don't need to learn to code to do it. Thank you for spending time with us. Please like and subscribe to our channel because we share weekly content to support your tech and Salesforce learning journey. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. Connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and on 100daysoftrailhead.com, all of which are listed below. Thank you for learning with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.